Evan moved through his life with the heavy, lingering feeling that he was drifting further and further away from the person he once hoped to become, almost as if he had slipped into a version of himself that existed only in the shadows of his own potential. At 27, he had already collected a trail of disappointment so long and painful that he sometimes wondered if he was cursed. A small business that collapsed after only 3 months, a job he quit because he felt unqualified, and a relationship he walked away from because he couldn't imagine himself being someone worth staying for. Every time he attempted something meaningful, fear whispered louder than his confidence, and eventually he convinced himself that some people were simply not chosen for success, and that he was one of them. But everything changed the night he realized he was being followed, not by a stranger, but by something far more unsettling. It happened on a late walk home after yet another job rejection, when Evan, exhausted and numb, passed a row of dark shop windows and caught sight of his reflection moving beside him. He almost kept walking until he noticed something that made every hair on his body rise. His reflection wasn't mirroring him. It stood taller, stronger, almost brighter, as if it belonged to a man who had conquered every fear Evan still carried. The reflection even smiled at him, a slow, confident smile he wasn't wearing. Terrified, Evan stumbled backward, but the reflection didn't vanish with the motion. Instead, it lifted its hand and pressed it to the inside of the glass, as if reaching out to him. Evan ran home, slammed the door shut, and tried to convince himself he was overtired. But deep down, something inside him knew that whatever he saw was real, and it wasn't finished with him. The next morning, as sunlight slipped under his curtains, Evan found something lying on the floor beneath his door. A small folded note, written in handwriting he recognized instantly as his own. His stomach tightened as he opened it. "Stop running. I'm not here to haunt you. I'm here to show you who you could be." He froze, the note trembling in his fingers, as the weight of the words settled into him. His reflection, or whatever version of himself it was trying to communicate, trying to be understood, trying to get closer. That night, despite fear gnawing at his chest, Evan returned to the same street, drawn by something deeper than curiosity, something that felt like fate tugging at him. When he reached the row of windows, his reflection was already waiting, but this time, instead of staying trapped in the glass, it stepped out of it slowly, like a figure forming from light and mist into a solid human shape. Evan stumbled backward, breathless, but the reflection raised a calm, reassuring hand, its voice steady and warm. "You don't know me yet," it said gently, "because you haven't become me yet." Evan swallowed hard. "Are you my future self?" The figure nodded slowly, with a small knowing smile. "I'm the version of you that finally stopped quitting." They walked together down the empty street, their footsteps echoing softly, and the reflection spoke with the tone of someone who had waited years for this moment. "Every time you quit early, I fade. Every time you run from fear, I weaken. Every time you tell yourself you're not good enough, I'm pushed further into the distance." Evan felt his chest tighten with shame and recognition. "But every time you try, even if you fail, I get closer." Evan looked at him, confused and hurting. "Why now?" he whispered. The reflection exhaled slowly, as if the answer weighed something heavy. "Because you are one decision away from losing me forever." They stopped beside a large window, and the reflection placed its hand on the glass. Suddenly, the reflection changed, showing scenes of what Evan's life could look like. Him leading a successful business, speaking confidently to crowds, forming relationships built on strength rather than fear, and living with purpose rather than hesitation. It was everything he secretly wanted, but never believed he could achieve. "This is the life waiting for you," the reflection said softly. "But it cannot meet you if you keep walking in the opposite direction." Evan felt tears blur his vision. "What do I need to do?" he whispered. The reflection stepped close, eyes steady and full of something almost like hope. Choose one dream, hold it, commit to it, and for once in your life, don't walk away. Evan nodded slowly, but with a clarity he hadn't felt in years, as if something inside him had finally snapped into place. He whispered, "I'm ready." The reflection smiled, proud, relieved, and its body began to dissolve into light, slowly fading, like smoke rising into the warm night air. "Good," it said, "because the moment you take one step toward your future, it takes 10 steps toward you." And then it vanished. Evan stood alone on the quiet street, but for the first time, he didn't feel abandoned by life. He felt accompanied, followed, by the person he was meant to become. And this time, instead of running from that version of himself, he was ready to chase it with everything he had.